Well, hey there everybody, it's Snackbox coming to you from a beautiful and sunshiny day down here in Basement Studio. Really excited to be here. I'm going to be talking to you today about 5 national park bucket list items that should be on your radar, and if they're not, they better be by the end of this video. This is all of my favorite adventures that I've either done or trips that I plan to do in the future, and I hope that you'll add them to your bucket list as well. We've got a lot to cover, not a lot of time. Let's get to it, everybody. You know, last night I had a dream that I was floating in an ocean of grape soda. It was a real fantasy. Sorry. So let's start with some basic parameters here. What we're talking about today are bucket list items that are on my bucket list, or I've already checked them off of my bucket list, and they all take place in American national parks. I know there's some pretty incredible trips out there, especially in Canada. There's some down in Patagonia, even a couple out in Europe, you name it. There are all sorts of great things going on in nature, in the world. But we are focusing here specifically on American national parks and some of those adventures that fly under the radar. So these are some trips that you might know about the national park, but maybe you don't know about the adventures that are hiding within. And I'm hoping that by the end of this video, you'll have a clear sense of some of the ways that you can either plan these trips or get out there into the wilderness, or start looking for times in your life when you might get out there in the wilderness and try some of these adventures. With that in mind, I want to talk to you about one of my absolute favorites. And this is a trip that my little brother and I have done 3 different times, and we always do it in the winter, which is a pro tip here, which is a bonus. And that is the Wilderness Waterway in Everglades National Park. Everglades National Park is just an absolutely spectacular national park. A lot of people get nervous when they hear Everglades and they think mosquitoes and alligators, and truth be told, there are a lot of things about the national park that are surprising, one of which is that you can do big trips in that national park without ever seeing an alligator or experiencing mosquitoes, specifically because it's a coastal trip. If you decide to go a route that's not the official Wilderness Waterway, you can stay coastal the entire way between Everglades City and down there to Flamingo. When you stay coastal, that means 2 different things. One is saltwater, so you're not going to experience any of those alligators, and 2 is that it is breezy, and that means mosquitoes can't necessarily fly. Now, if you choose to do the Wilderness Waterway, this is an official route. It's 99 miles, goes from Everglades City down there to Flamingo, and it is absolutely incredible for giving you a sample of everything the Everglades has to offer. This route will have some mosquitoes, to be sure, and you'll also see some alligators. But if you do end up seeing an alligator, I've watched enough crocodile hunter to know that what you need to do is jump on its back, call it a big Sheila, and put a rope on its mouth. Don't actually do that. You know what I mean? What's really cool about this trip is that, number 1, it can be done in the winter time. Winter is a very hard time for many people to find a great trip because a lot of the really spectacular mountain national parks are going to be snowed under. So this is a great one for those of you who are looking for a trip that you can do over New Year's, or maybe even in the early winter, January, February, because Florida is beautiful in the winter months. So one of my other favorite parts about this trip is that you do it in a canoe. So you can rent a canoe up in Everglades City, paddle it all the way down to Flamingo, and then have the canoe company come pick you and the canoe up and take you back to your car. Makes logistics really easy. And then the other huge advantage here is that they don't take reservations. So you show up at the visitor center and the rangers will help you plot out your entire trip, which is especially helpful if you decide, you know what, I'm going to do this and it's a last minute trip and I can't get permits to do some of the bigger hikes that I've had on my bucket list. This is a great alternative for those of you who are maybe working a schedule that doesn't allow you to look ahead in the future and plan days off in quite the same way that somebody who has a more fixed schedule would be able to. The last thing that I need to mention to you is that these are great first-timer trips, specifically because your canoe is going to carry all that weight, which means you don't have it on your shoulders, so you can take a lot of those luxury items that you might have had to leave if you did a different trip. So you can take all sorts of good snacks and food, you can take big stoves, you can take whatever you want, some chairs, you name it. My brother and I take hammocks and we sit around in hammocks with some books and read and have big meals, you name it, we have a great time. And it's great because the canoe, you don't really feel that weight even if you pile in a bunch of the extra goodies that you wouldn't be able to take if you were doing a traditional backpacking trip. So add the Wilderness Waterway to your trip, and when you do, be on the lookout for chickees. Chickees are my favorite place to camp in the entire Everglades. These are open water docks with roofs on them, porta potties, and while you sleep on them, dolphins will come around and swim around your chickee at night, and you'll get to hear them hunt in the mangrove forest. It's absolutely spectacular. Put this on your list if it's not already. The Everglades is way underrated by way of national parks, and you need to get your butt down there pronto. And one of the trips still left for me to check off of my own bucket list is the Wilderness Coast in Olympic National Park. This is about 37 miles of trips. They have two segments. They've got a northern and a southern segment. The northern segment is 20 miles and the southern segment is 17 miles. And you will literally hike along the coast, and you have to take about 3 to 4 days to do it, because as you're doing the trip, you have to stop in certain places for high tide so that you can make sure that you get through it on low tide when it's safe to pass. This sounds incredible. There are certain places where fires are allowed. There are privies there. You get to see all sorts of things. You'll see bald eagles. You'll see sea stacks. I don't even know what those are. They sound like some type of Sam Squanch. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to getting out there and finding it. And what's especially nice is that it can be a challenging hike, but overall it's going to be pretty level. So it's good for people who are really getting into outdoor adventures and want to have something epic that doesn't necessarily burn your quads to pieces. So this is a great one. Very excited about it. And then while you're out there on the Olympic Peninsula, be sure to take a trip over to Forks, Washington and check out all your favorite Twilight everything. I know you love Twilight. I love Twilight. Team Jacob. I think that's right. Who knows? But go check out Forks, Washington, check out the whole coastal area, and then make some time to get into Olympic National Park, because there's some really great hikes inside the park as well. If you make your way all the way out to Washington, be sure that you hit up that wilderness coastline in Olympic National Park. It seems super cool. I've read articles about it. It has been high on my bucket list for a long, long time, and I'm hoping to make it happen sometime in the very near future. Maybe we'll cross paths somewhere on the beach near Sally, who's selling seashells by the seashore. Now, here's one of the accidental finds that I had on a trip years and years ago, and this is a really special one, but I'm talking to you about it now because if you want to do it, the soonest you'll be able to experience the adventure I'm about to tell you about is going to be June of 2023. You're going to have to look more than a year out. These are the synchronous fireflies in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It's just one tucked away pocket there by the Elkmont campground, and in this little pocket of trees and woods in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, there are fireflies that flash all at the same time. You didn't mishear that. Thousands and thousands of fireflies will flash all at the same exact time out there in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Here's what you got to do though, is get a campsite in Elkmont, and to do so they start releasing those campsites 6 months out. So you need to be planning. Go ahead and stop the video right here, set a date in your planner on your iPhone or other smartphone that says, you know what, in January I'm going to be looking out and I'm going to book myself a campsite there in Elkmont and check it out. Now here's what you want to do. Only spend a couple of days there in Elkmont because you'll get to see the fireflies then, and then make your way over to Cades Cove in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And over in Cades Cove, it's a little busier, but you're going to be able to wake up in the morning, rent a bicycle, and ride the Cades Cove Loop. This is 13 miles, and you will see all sorts of old farmland, and in those fields, you'll see things like deer, lots and lots of them, and you'll also see black bears out in the field with their cubs. You can drive it if you want, but I don't recommend it. You'll be stuck in traffic, but hopping on a bicycle or even walking it, 13 miles is not necessarily a bad deal for somebody who wants to spend a whole day out doing that loop on foot. Definitely would recommend it. And this would also open up that Elkmont area so people who haven't seen the fireflies will be able to get in and see it, and you will be able to avoid the crowds. Worth going. It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen, and it only happens the first 2 weeks in June. So the synchronous fireflies only show up the first 2 weeks in June, and that's sort of their mating season. So they use the firefly flashes to mate with each other. It's basically their version of Bumble, except I don't think fireflies really do a lot of catfishing. I could be wrong about that. I'm not a firefly, but go check it out. It is incredible. First 2 weeks in June, Elkmont Campground in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Definitely recommend it. Very special. Check it out. And go hit up Dollywood while you're out there. It's Dolly, right? If you do see Dolly, tell her, listen, Dolly, I will always love you. Sorry. Now here's one that is high on my bucket list. I want to have this experience in the next few years. This is the Brooks Camp of Katmai National Park. Katmai National Park, to those of you who don't know, is up in Alaska, and this is where the grizzly bears, if you've ever watched those videos of grizzlies and they are swimming and they're fishing and the trout or salmon or whatever they are jumping up and they're swatting them out of the air, doing all that stuff, that is there in Katmai National Park, and you can check it out in the Brooks Camp. What makes Brooks Camp really special is they only allow 60 people in. It's about $12 a night in peak season, which is June to September, and it is enclosed entirely with an electric fence so that you can sleep soundly without feeling like you're going to get revenanted in the middle of the night. They start accepting reservations January 5th, so same as the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and the synchronous fireflies, you want to mark your calendar now because those reservations can fill up within minutes. And when I say minutes, I mean minutes. And basically what will happen is you'll set up your reservation and then you have to figure out how to get up there to Katmai National Park, it's not easy. You're going to have to get to Alaska and then take a second plane to Alaska from Alaska, and then you can check it out. You're capped at 7 days consecutively and 14 days on the year. Totally fine. You're probably not going to have time to do that long of a trip anyway, but go check it out. It's supposed to be incredible and it's a really special experience, and I can't wait to get up there and try it out. There are some sort of off months where you can do this. Let me tell you a little bit for those of you who can't make it up this year. They do have live cams, so you can watch on these live cams and check out the bears at any given time. You can check them out right now, and they'll even show highlights of the bears. And what they do, the way that it works there at the Katmai National Park bear cams, when you go online and track them down, what they're going to show you is bears doing something always. So they'll show you bears playing in a stream, they'll show you bears fishing, they'll show you a couple of the baby bears wrestling, you name it. But what's cool about it is it always cuts to action. So you're never going to be staring at an empty creek. You're always going to be watching bears, and it'll give you about 10-15 seconds and then cut to more bears somewhere else. This is great news, generally speaking. Let me tell you a little bit of a story about this though. One day I was sitting in my office. For those of you who don't know, I'm a college professor by day. So I'm sitting in my office watching this bear cam, and a student walks into my office and she can't see the screen of my computer. Totally fine, pretty normal, right? So I'm watching the bears at Katmai National Park and everything's going great. There are a couple of baby bears playing, and then I watch a mama bear swimming in an eddy. She's fishing for food to take to her baby bears, and I explain to my student everything I just told you there. I go to turn my computer around so she can watch the bears as well, and as I turn it, remember I told you that it always cuts to where the action is. As I turned it, it cut to two bears trying to make more bears on the side of the river. And they were not gentle. This is a pretty awkward moment, as you can probably imagine. So just be aware of that. Just know that that could be a risk that you're going to run into, and I can tell you that it's way worse than being mauled by a bear. And the final adventure. This one is going to take you to our newest state, all the way out there in Hawaii. Is that the newest state? This one is still high on my bucket list. These are the wilderness cabins all the way out there in Hawaii at Haleakala National Park. These are 3 different cabins that are somewhere between 5 and 9.5 miles from the trailhead. You can actually reserve them in sequence and do a loop where you go to each one and do this big loop over the course of 3 days, which if you can manage to plan that out and get the reservations, absolutely do that. These are incredible. They were built in the 1930s by the CCC as a way of helping us get out of the Great Depression. They were meant to mirror sort of the natural environment, kind of engage with that natural space. One of them is on the edge of a crater, the other is at the bottom of a cliff, and here's the best part, they are $75 a night, which is not bad. You won't be able to get a hotel in Hawaii for that price, so you might as well hike in. And they also have water there at each of the different cabins that needs to be filtered, but I can tell you carrying a filter is a lot easier than carrying water, so it is super worth it. I encourage you to check this one out, and then while you're there, make sure that you pay specific attention to the rules and regulations, because especially with COVID, the Hawaiian Islands have become very strict about the ways that you can get into the different national parks, so you just want to be aware of that. There's some certain restrictions and things that change pretty often, so I'm not going to mention them right here because by the time you watch this video, it might not matter at all, but just be aware of that. Haleakala National Park, very special space, worth making a trip all the way to Hawaii to check it out. And if you can, get into those wilderness cabins in Haleakala, check it out, and then drink all the Kona coffee you can in the morning and all the pina coladas you can in the evening, and you are going to be one happy snack box. Well, I think that about covers it, everybody. I hope you all have enjoyed this. I hope you got some new ideas for some adventures that you can take in the future. Be sure you hit me up on Instagram at Backcountry Champion. I will send you one of these sweet outside comfort zone stickers. I'll get it in the mail to you for free. You don't even have to follow me. Just say, hey, Snackbox, hit me up with one of those stickers. I'll get one in the mail to you to say thank you for being part of this community. Really grateful for that. Be sure you click like and subscribe. We're going to be talking about all sorts of camping, hiking, other adventures, all things outdoor, lots of gear, and we're going to be having a good time while we do it. I appreciate y'all out there. I hope you're doing well, and I hope everything is bright and sunny in your world. Take care, everybody. The Snackbox out.